This is the Tom Bigby Tales, and I'm your host, Shannon Evans. I write about a small town in Mississippi called Columbus along the Tom Bigby River. Today's episode is called Mayor A.J. McDowell, an Almost Murderer. On July 15th, 1895, Columbus, Mississippi Mayor A.J. McDowell confronted Ben Story on the streets of Columbus. Story was in a buggy with his brother-in-law, Dag Gordon. McDowell raised a double-barrel shotgun and blasted both barrels of buckshot into Story. Gordon, in the buggy with him, suffered minor injuries. Story, gut shot and shot in the arm and filled with lead, was not expected to live more than a few days after the incident. The papers around the state ran with the sensational story that Mayor McDowell shot the younger man for, quote, taking advantage of his daughter. Criminal indecency. Story was a married man who was a conductor on the M&O Railroad, and he was on the East St. Louis to Cairo, Illinois run, but he was headquartered in Columbus. It's not obvious from the news articles available which daughter of McDowell's was the object of Story's eyes. Perhaps Josephine, who was born in 1879, who did not marry until 1902. Perhaps it was her older sister, Lalia, who would eventually marry and move to Georgia and raise 3 children. No matter the daughter, their father, Andrew Jackson McDowell Sr., was guilty of attempted murder. A.J. McDowell Sr. was born in Lowndes County, Mississippi in 1844. He first appears in census records in 1850 as a small child and the son of William McDowell, an overseer on the John Cox plantation. A.J. would serve in the Confederate Army, enlisting in Columbus as a private in 1861 in the 43rd Mississippi Infantry. By 1870, in the 1880 census, he was living in Caledonia. He was living on Caledonia Street and working as a railroad agent. In the early 1890s, McDowell was elected mayor of Columbus, and he and his wife Josephine are listed as having 3 children, Lalia, Josephine, and Sally Mae, and one son, Andrew Jr., called Jack. Benjamin Ferdinand Story is a different sort of character, and one most fathers would not want involved with a young daughter, even if he had been a single man at the time, which he wasn't. He came from salt-of-the-earth parents. His father, also called Andrew Jackson, was from Pickens County, Alabama, originally, and he served in the 11th Alabama Infantry in the Civil War. By 1900, he and his wife, Kitty, are living in Columbus, where he is a salesman. He died in 1903 and his wife in 1913. Both are buried at Friendship Cemetery. But back to their son, Ben. Ben married a young woman in Columbus in 1891. She appears from our story after his being wounded by Mayor McDowell. Our boy Ben, now aged 25, survives being shot in the shoulder, the arm, and the gut, and continues working on the railroad after the mayor is exonerated for shooting Ben to protect his family's honor. Ben leaves for Texas to work there as a railroad conductor. There he meets 16-year-old Ethel Josephine DeBlue. They marry in 1899 in Anderson, Texas, and she is 17 and he is 30. They live with her parents for a bit, and he continues to work on the railroad as a conductor until 1918, when they have 6 children, and he is arrested and incarcerated for 2 years for felony theft. He was held in the Huntsville, Walker, Texas prison and is listed as convict 42406. Ben and Ethel divorced at some time, I'm presuming while he was incarcerated. As soon after, he would remarry to a Frances Wade, and they would later have a child. Ben would live on to the ripe age of 73. He died in 1941 in Memphis, Tennessee, and is buried there at the Elmwood Cemetery. But what happened to Mayor McDowell? The shooting of the story was on the 16th of July of 1895, and by the 20th, the mayor had bonded out to appear at circuit court. He was never indicted by the grand jury because Story lived and left town for Texas. By September, the mayor announced he was retiring from office and would not run for re-election. In December of 1895, he was once again found in the public record holding his mayor's court for the city. A.J. McDowell did not get to enjoy his retirement as he died in February of 1896. He had served 2 terms as mayor and was much loved in the city. On the day of his funeral, class was canceled at all local schools, including the Women's College. The funeral was held at First Methodist, with every seat taken and mourners allegedly standing along the back. He was buried at Friendship Cemetery and given honors by the Odd Fellows, the Knights of Pythias, and was given a 21-gun salute by his fellow Columbus riflemen. And that, my friends, is another episode of the Tom Bigby Tales. If you want to know more about Columbus and would like to see some of our beautiful homes, I invite you to follow the Historic Home Tours of Columbus on Facebook, and I invite you to learn more about Tom Bigby Tales and some of the stories about our town by liking, following, and subscribing to the Tom Bigby Tales. You can follow us anywhere where your favorite podcasts are hosted. You can also follow us on YouTube. Thank you and good night.